So hello again, everyone. My name is Crystal Booker-Roish, and I am very happy to welcome you all to the Office of Global Education's Scholarships and Financial Assistance panel. We do anticipate that this session will last for about an hour today, this is a very resource-heavy presentation, so whatever we are unable to fully get to in the slides, again, please know that we will be sharing the slide deck with everyone who has registered for this event, and there will be several clickable links for all of you to use as you research your available scholarship and financial aid options. And I want to make sure that everyone can hear me clearly and can see the presentation. Okay, perfect. I do see some nods. And feel free to share questions in the chat as well. There will be points throughout the session where we will open the floor for questions from the audience. But if you do have a pressing question, feel free to add those to the chat, and I'll make sure to get to those as we move along through the presentation. So again, my name is Crystal Booker-Roish. I am the program manager for the Office of Global Education, and I will be leading today's panel. And I am very excited to have a few guests with us, both a recent Gilman Scholarship recipient, along with two excellent people here at CU Denver who will be great resources for you, both on the VA education benefits side and on the financial aid office side. So I'll pass the floor to Jennifer, if you'd like to introduce yourself. Oh, oops, you're muted, Jennifer.
Sorry about that. So I'm Jennifer Helgeson. I'm one of the assistant directors in the Financial Aid and Scholarships Office. And I worked in study abroad when I was a counselor for many years. So I have a lot of information about how the program works. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. And Yvonne.
Hi, my name is Yvonne Dinsmore. I actually recently got promoted to assistant director. I am the assistant director of Veteran and Military Student Services, and I've worked with the Office of Global Education over the years, helping our students who are using VA education benefits. And so I'm happy to answer any questions you all have.
Thank you so much, Yvonne. And last but not least, Emily.
Hi, so I'm Emily. I am a fourth-year student here at CU Denver, a psych student, and I will be graduating this semester. And I studied abroad in spring 2020 and also applied for the Gilman Scholarship. And I think I received, I would say, $2,500 from the Gilman Scholarship. And I also applied through a third-party study abroad program. So I know about all those processes too.
Thank you all again. And we are so excited to have such fantastic panelists join us. And I also just want to give a special shout out to the Global Education team that's also here, including our director, Catherine Ebert-Gray, and our program coordinators, Emily Wheeler and Nicole Heron. So feel free as well throughout the presentation, if you have any other advice or resources to add, please share those. And again, we appreciate all of you being here today and supporting each other as we share some great resources and tips with all of you. So today's agenda is essentially divided into three parts. We'll start with Emily giving an overview of her experience with the Gilman Scholarship. We'll then move into our panel, a Q&A with Jennifer and Yvonne with some frequently asked questions that we hear among our students planning to study abroad. And we'll then end with some resources, not only various scholarship websites and scholarship types that you can look into, but general ideas on fundraising, both creative activities that you can do to help gain money to help support your study abroad experience. Okay. So moving on, I'd like to take a couple of minutes to oops, go back here, my apologies. Okay. I want to take a few minutes for us to understand Emily's experience a little bit as a Gilman Scholarship recipient. So Emily, I have a few questions for you. How did you hear about the Gilman Scholarship?
So I first heard of it from your office. I made an appointment because I knew I wanted to study abroad, and they gave me a lot of options. And once we started talking about the financial aspect, I asked for scholarships, and they said that the Gilman Scholarship is one of the, I guess, most known scholarship that they offer. So I was looking into that, and I also am part of TRIO Support Student Services here at CU Denver. And I mentioned I want to study abroad, and they also had another recipient that had gone the previous semester and had gotten the Gilman Scholarship. So they connected me with her, and we also spoke about it.
Awesome. Thank you, Emily. And once you found out about this opportunity, what steps did you take to apply for the scholarship?
So first I was really nervous to apply, since everyone was like, oh, it's very competitive. It's competitive. So I was nervous to apply, and I think I applied pretty late. Well, I would say late as in maybe a month and a half to 2 months before it was due. And through the process, I think my first step was I printed out what they were requiring as the essays. I think that's a big part of it. And I made an appointment with the Writing Center and another appointment with the TRIO support services that I go to, and just discussing over brainstorming some ideas what I could write for my essays.
Great. So it's good to hear that you had a support network really to help you navigate that process for applying, because it is a bit intimidating. Yeah. So knowing that, what advice do you have for students interested in the Gilman Scholarship, since it is a big one that we promote for Pell Grant recipients?
I think you should definitely try. If you're going to go through all the process, might as well go all the way and do all the work for it. Because studying abroad, the process is pretty lengthy. So might as well do this too. I guess advice I would have is how I mentioned first. I printed out what questions they were asking, and then I put in some, I guess what I would say, some ideas. I brainstormed ideas, and then I just wrote a rough draft, and then I would go to the Writing Center. And I think the Writing Center is what really helped me, and this is the first time I had gone to the Writing Center. I was always, I guess, kind of intimidated to go to the Writing Center and have someone else read my work. But I did want this funding because it could be pretty expensive to study abroad. So I went to the Writing Center, and they were so nice. I 100% recommend going there. And I took my rough draft. I don't even think I had it all complete. So it's okay if it's not complete. And they just give you so much advice on how to rearrange stuff, what to add, what not to add.
Awesome, Emily, and thank you for promoting the Writing Center too, because that can be very intimidating, having students write essays, and and that's one resource that we promote, especially with understanding how to best tell your story. for something, as competitive as this. So, knowing that with the Gilman application, there's a question towards the end that asks you about your follow-on project. Like, how do you plan to promote study abroad, and help students, get to know the Gilman scholarship, a bit better and how it can benefit you. So what does it mean for you to be a Gilman ambassador, to be someone who really benefited from this opportunity?
I think what it means is, you're not only promoting like Gilman, but promoting the idea of studying abroad and getting out there. And I think that's something great. And, like, I guess promoting the idea that anything is possible. And if you truly want it, like, you can get it. And, studying abroad is such like a great, thing. For my follow-up project, I kind of related it to, there's two essays, I guess. The first one is the basic, why do you want to study abroad and what program are you doing? And, those basic questions. And the second one is a follow-up project where basically you're promoting the Gilman Scholarship. And after 6 months of arriving from your study abroad, you have to do this big project. I chose to present to first generation students, well, high school students, first generation high school students going into college on why they should choose study abroad, and ultimately promoting the Gilman Scholarship and how to apply.
That is fantastic. Thank you again, Emily, for sharing that testimonial and some incredibly valuable tips for our audience that's here today. Thank you. And so I wanted to open the floor to the audience for any questions that you have for Emily as a Gilman Scholarship recipient.
I guess, how competitive is the Gilman Scholarship?
Well, I always heard people saying it was very competitive, and a lot of students do apply. I don't know how many, but I mean, I believe, I don't know how many students got Gilman at CU Denver. I'm really unsure about that, but from what I've heard, people would tell me it's competitive. But I mean, if I could get it, I feel like anyone here can get it.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just add to that? Because I've worked with the Gilman as well within the financial aid office, and I've seen many CU students be awarded Gilman Scholarship. More students studying abroad than any other scholarship that has come through for study abroad. But you do have to be Pell Grant eligible to be eligible for the Gilman Scholarship. I just wanted to add that too.
I listened to a talk last week, a couple months ago, about the Gilman, by the Gilman people, and they said 1 in 4 applicants gets a scholarship. Good odds.
Yeah, so I think if you at least try, like, you don't lose anything from trying, but if you get it, then you win something from trying. And then the question in the chat, okay, so TRIO SSS, they call it, it's for first generation students and low income. I joined this program my freshman year of college, and I was into a similar program like that in high school called pre-collegiate. And there's just really helpful for first generation students. So I feel like if you're first generation, you should definitely look into that. They do meetings. They require meetings, like 2 or 3 meetings a semester, and it's just great to have someone give you advice. It's kind of like a peer mentoring, and they do offer a scholarship, a book scholarship every semester. So if you're first generation, definitely check it out. Just Google CU Denver TRIO SSS, And another question is if the Gilman Scholarship is available to MBA program. I am not sure. I don't know if someone else.
I can answer that. Unfortunately, it is not available to graduate students because you need to be Pell Grant eligible, and only Pell Grants are awarded to undergraduates only. So unfortunately, no, you would not be eligible for it.
And do you know about the FAFSA award?
If by FAFSA award, you mean the Pell Grant, which is awarded off of the FAFSA based on the EFC, then yeah, if you are not Pell Grant eligible, you are not eligible for the Gilman Scholarship.
I currently don't know any deadlines. If I remember correctly, well, when I did it, it was pre-pandemic, so I don't know how things are now.
If I can jump in for that. So there are a couple of Gilman deadlines throughout the year. They have a March deadline and an October deadline, and those deadlines are listed on their website, which is one of the resources listed later in the presentation. But the upcoming deadline in March is on March 1st. And the deadline will vary a little bit depending on when you're planning on studying abroad. The eligibility requirements are also listed on their website, but the main ones to be mindful of is that you must be a US citizen, you must be an undergraduate student in good standing, you must be receiving a federal Pell Grant at the time of your application. You must be in the process of applying for a study abroad program or already have been accepted into one. And there are some requirements in place for the program's US State Department travel advisory level. But all of that is explained in detail on the Gilman website. But very good questions. Any other questions for Emily? And I did want to briefly mention that I believe myself and my colleagues in OGE that we've served as panelists for the Gilman Scholarship Award. So we have had experience in reviewing those applications and understanding what it looks like from the other end. And so if you are interested in learning a bit more about the application process and ways to make your application quite strong, feel free to make an appointment with either myself, Emily, or Nicole. We'd be very happy to share some insights with you. I wanted to see if there were any other comments from OGE related to Gilman specifically.
Also, if you are eligible and you do want to apply to the Gilman Scholarship and want any ideas on what to do for your follow-up project or what to write, you can always email me and ask me. I'm open pretty much all the time for, any advice you need. And if you don't want to ask anything right now, I'll put my email in the chat and you could send me something privately if you have any other questions, even if it's not Gilman related, any study abroad questions or, going through the process and all that. Because it's always good to have someone like a peer who's been through that and knows the process, because it could be stressful. So I'll put my email down in the chat.
Thank you again, Emily, and thanks a million for your willingness to be a resource for our students and continuing to be such a fantastic Gilman ambassador for our campus. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And again, I encourage you all to please reach out to our office or to Emily with any questions, and we'll all be happy to help navigate Gilman for you. Thank you. So moving on to our panelist Q&A with Jennifer and Yvonne. We'll use this section of the event to talk a little bit more about the common financial aid and VA education benefit questions that we receive from students. So starting off with a few just general scholarship FAQs that we hear all the time. How do I find scholarships? And I'll preface that question by saying that we do have lots of resources towards the end of the presentation. But if a student did approach either of you, Yvonne or Jennifer, how would you recommend for them to find scholarship options?
Well, scholarships are, every one of them is going to be an individual criteria for it. So you're going to have to determine, and if you're receiving scholarships now, you're going to want to find out if those scholarships will go towards study abroad, because not all of them will pay towards study abroad, and that would be up to the donor. We do have scholarship team in our office that could help facilitate that process for you as well. Of course, we have Scholarship Universe for the students within CU Denver that you all should be filling out no matter what, for study abroad or not, to see if you qualify any internal scholarships. And then again, those would depend on which ones you received, up to the donor, up to the department, up to the school, if they will allow you to use those funding for study abroad. The best resources I have known when I worked with scholarships for study abroad was the actual Office of Global Education. I think you guys have your pulse on most scholarships that go towards study abroad programs, and I would recommend to students to talk to OGE for this information as well.
Thank you, Jennifer. And going back to a point that you mentioned about eligibility for study abroad and specific scholarships, can you give us an overview of just in general, like what types of scholarships that you may see some students here at CU Denver use that cannot be used towards studying abroad?
I mean, there would be many. And so I am not educated on all scholarships. I don't even really work with scholarships that much, but I know like maybe some of the big ones like Rice or Daniels Fund. I'm not sure if you can use them. I think that sometimes the donors will allow you to appeal for study abroad, but again, that's going to be individually based on the donor of the scholarship. And there's really too many out there to speak specifically on any, besides the Gilman. That is, again, the biggest scholarship we see that goes towards study abroad, outside of any scholarships that your office may give to students. That's the big one we see that funds study abroad programs.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. So, a question for Yvonne. It's working with VA benefit users, knowing that students may be using like the post 9/11 GI Bill or a different chapter altogether. Now, one question that we hear periodically is, I have VA benefits, like a particular chapter or two. Could I use my VA benefits and scholarships, at the same time for studying abroad? And I know that could be a really complicated question depending on what kind of benefit the student is using.
Yeah, so students can use scholarships along with their VA education benefits, but it's very important to differentiate that when you're using VA education benefits, for those benefits that pay for tuition and fees, if you apply for a tuition and fee specific scholarship, that doesn't necessarily go towards study abroad. So a good rule of thumb is to read the detail of the scholarship and look for scholarships that are general scholarships that can be used for living expenses, books, and other general items that people would need to go to school. Tuition specific scholarships usually need to be deducted from what we bill to the VA for those benefits that do cover tuition and fees.
Thank you so much. And I kind of one last broad question that that we hear, about this topic is, in general, what assistance can the Financial Aid and Scholarships Office or the Office of Veteran and Military Student Services offer students who are interested in looking for really any kind of scholarship, whether they're studying abroad or not?
Again, I'd recommend filling out the applications on Scholarship Universe that go specifically to CU students and RCU scholarships. Every student should be doing that regardless of your financial need or your study abroad intentions. And we also do have scholarship counselors within the office that you're welcome to contact and discuss scholarship opportunities, and they can help with that process as well.
Our office, the Veteran and Military Student Services Office, we usually refer students to scholarships, CU Denver scholarships. And we also do have a list of military connected scholarships on our website that is, oftentimes based on the type of degree the student is going for, what branch they were enlisted in, whether they're a dependent or they were the active duty military member themselves. So there are some additional scholarship opportunities out there for students for who are military connected outside of the scholarship office that CU Denver has.
Thank you both so much. And I wanted to open the floor back up for a moment for any questions from the audience. For Yvonne and Jennifer, we will get to financial aid and more about VA education benefits in just a moment. But any questions at this point? Okay, well, if more arise during the presentation, again, feel free to add those questions to the chat, and I will be monitoring that throughout the presentation. So moving on to VA education benefit FAQs. So a few more for Yvonne. So in general, how do VA education benefits work for CU Denver study abroad programs specifically? So these would be like our faculty-led programs or any program where a student is taking a CU Denver course abroad. Yes, so if a student is using VA education benefits, specifically Chapter 33 post 9/11 GI Bill benefits, it is really, really important to know that they are only allowed to use faculty-led study abroad programs. The VA will not pay a third-party entity when it comes to study abroad. And the basics of it is that the VA will pay up to the resident tuition rate as if the student was taking the course on the CU Denver campus. And so anything above and beyond that resident tuition and fee rate would be the student's responsibility. Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know that you mentioned or made a quick point about third-party programs, like a non-CU Denver program. So those would be situations where students could not use VA benefits towards those. That's correct. Unfortunately, as I mentioned, the VA does have the capability of paying tuition and fees directly to a school. They don't have the capability of paying third-party entities when it comes to study abroad. Thank you so much. And if a student decides that, especially if they're, a junior or a senior, and they're close to the reaching the end, of that 36-month period that they may have for their benefits. We do have some students who say, well, I may not want to be certified for my study abroad program, just to hold on to those weeks or that month and be certified when I return. So for those students who do not want to use VA benefits for studying abroad, but do not have any other sources of aid, should those students complete a FAFSA specifically for their study abroad term? And that may be more of a question for Jennifer too.
I really do want to impress upon our students that everyone should fill out a FAFSA. Students who are using VA education benefits are eligible for different types of funding, like the Pell Grant that was mentioned. And the only way to find out if you are eligible is to fill out the FAFSA. And that's free money that you don't need to repay. So why would you not do it? Well, the FAFSA can be a little bit challenging to fill out, maybe a little bit difficult if you've never done it before, but it can definitely be worth it because you're going to get some, it's possible to get some funding that you might not have known about otherwise. So we always recommend for students to use the FAFSA or to fill out the FAFSA.
Fantastic, thank you. And so if a student does decide to use their VA benefits to study abroad, kind of at any point in the year, when would students be certified for that program, especially those post 9/11 users who may need that that housing allowance, that book stipend before going abroad?
Absolutely. So the ideal time to submit a certification request to our office is about 60 days prior to the start of that term or semester. A lot of times study abroad does fall in with the spring semester, and so we can certify it at the same time that we would certify other spring courses. Some study abroad happens during Maymester, and so, depending on how early you're able to enroll in the course, you'll want to submit that certification request to us as soon as possible so that we can get that over to the VA so they can go ahead and get that process so that you can get your benefits on time.
Excellent, thank you. And just one last question. If students do have more questions, whether it's about certifications or understanding their benefit a bit more, what is and is not allowed under the VA's rules, how should they get in touch with your office if they have more questions?
Yeah, absolutely. So currently we are working remotely. We're hoping to be back in the office soon, but we are answering the phone from our main line remotely. We also have our general email box, our main office line and general email box information. I'll go ahead and put in the chat so you all can have that. Our main line number is 303-315-7300. I'll put that in the chat. And also our email address is vmss@ucdenver.edu. If you Google CU Denver Veterans, you'll also come across our webpage, and that will have all of our contact information on it as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Yvonne. And I just wanted to open the floor back up for any questions specifically related to VA education benefits. Okay. And I do see a question from Roma in the chat. Is the UROP $500 a good one for study abroad? And I believe that's the one for undergraduate research.
Yeah, that is correct.
Okay. So that But that one I am not personally familiar with, but I did want to ask Jennifer if that, because I believe it's for undergraduate research.
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Again, you'd have to check with the specific scholarship and the entity to see if they would cover you to do study abroad. Is it through the department?
No, it's just it's a pretty broad scholarship offered, and I once worked with a group of students. That was 2 years back, and we applied for the broader one for a much larger project, but they just opened up the smaller one, which is a $500, and it has a travel component to it, I believe. So I thought since students are traveling, maybe they could potentially apply.
Yeah, that would be up to the scholarship agency, so I would
Okay.
check with them.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Roma, for that question. Thank you. So moving on to financial aid FAQs. So Jennifer, just a few common questions that we receive. How does financial aid work? How does financial aid work by term? Like knowing that most of our students study abroad, Maymester and summer, but it does work a little differently depending on when students go.
Absolutely. So financial aid is going to work the same for study abroad as it would for a regular academic year at CU Denver. So what that means is we're front loading financial aid for fall and spring mostly, because that's when our students come. And by that, I mean, we're going to be offering you most of your loan eligibility then. We have specific, grants earmarked for summer if you're Pell Grant eligible, but there'll be a much larger fund for fall and spring. So summer is kind of like leftover financial aid per se. So if you don't borrow all your loans, then we'll offer you what remains in the summer or fall. If you're a grad student and you qualify for Grad Plus loan, there's no limit on that loan. So grad students can have, if they're willing to take out a plus loan and they qualify for it, because it is credit based, they usually will have enough funding for the entire semester. Undergraduates, it can be a little bit different. Again, if they've used all their loan eligibility in fall and spring, there's going to be nothing to offer in terms of loan for the summer. They Pell Grant eligible, they may receive some Pell Grant in the summer and some additional grants as well. So it does depend on the term. Undergraduates still need 6 hours to qualify for most types of financial aid, grad students 3 hours. So some students, undergrad students who want to take a Maymester and it's 3 hours and they're not going to qualify for financial aid at 3 hours. Oftentimes they'll take another course during the regular summer term, get that up to that 6 hours of enrollment to qualify for their summer financial aid. Same for Wintrum and spring. Those are kind of like a combined semester, whatever a student's taking in Wintrum will tap onto the spring semester. So if they have 3 hours in Wintrum, 9 hours in this regular spring term, they'll be considered a full-time student for the spring.
Wonderful, thank you. I know that we've talked a bit about Pell Grants throughout this presentation, but I wanted to see if there were any other tips that you had for students who may have a Pell Grant. They may be interested in Gilman, but just wanting to make sure that they could still use that Pell Grant for study abroad.
I mean, if a student is qualified for Pell Grant, more than likely they'll be able to get some for the summer because the federal government allows you to get three semesters, let's say, worth of Pell Grant. Again, most students with Pell Grant still need 6 hours. And when you're Pell Grant eligible, that means you will qualify for other grants within our office. And this is just a good rule of thumb, even beyond financial, study abroad, is if you're Pell Grant eligible, that means you're eligible for other grants, institutional, state. If you have not received them, it may mean that you're not a resident because you have to be a resident for institutional and state grants. If you are a resident, it means that we might have gotten your FAFSA too late because unlike Pell Grant, where that is a guaranteed grant to you if you qualify for it. State and institutional grant funds are not, they're limited funding. So we're awarding those out first come, first basis on eligibility. So with that being said, FAFSA comes out every year on October 1st for the upcoming academic year. And everyone should be doing it on October 1st. Not only doing it, but following up with our office if we are requiring you to submit additional documents, because we can't award you if we need additional documents. And if you wait on that, then once you get that all into us and we finalize your package, it might be too late for those grants too. So the best thing you can do in terms of FAFSA is to apply early every year for study abroad or otherwise. I'm not sure if I answered your question, Crystal.
Yes, thank you. And I know that that ties into some of the other questions that we have. So thank you. I think another one that I want to highlight on the slide, because I know it is a question that I've seen pretty recently, is just how do payment plans work for study abroad? And this is a question that we tend to receive from students who may not have any financial aid currently, but maybe using a payment plan throughout the normal academic year already.
Right, so that would be really a question for the bursar's office because they're handling the payment plans. But let me just tell you what I do know is that when you're doing a third-party provider, the only thing CU Denver is going to charge you is $400. So there's going to be no payment plan available to pay a third-party provider through CU Denver unless you work something out directly with the third-party provider. I believe payment plans for faculty-led programs will work exactly the same way as payment plans for a regular semester would work. You need to sign up by a certain date and then make payments by a certain date. But that would all be arranged through the bursar's office. So I would contact them directly for that information.
Okay, thank you. And on the topic of third parties, can you briefly explain kind of what is a contractual agreement?
So in order to receive financial aid for a study abroad program to a foreign institution that isn't a Title IV eligible institution, we have to contract out with that institution for financial aid purposes. So what it is basically is a contract between our school, CU Denver, and the foreign institution or the third party provider, letting us know what courses the student is taking, make sure those courses are going towards the student's degree, even though it is in a foreign country. All courses need to go towards a student degree if you're going to receive financial aid for them, and then the costs of that program. And once we get all those signatures signed off on, it comes back to the financial aid office and we review it. We update the student's budget for the cost of the study abroad program. And if additional aid is available because of the additional costs, like a graduate plus loan, a parent plus loan, something like that, then we would increase that offer at that time. We'll also hold the financial aid until 10 days prior to the study abroad start, not the regular term semester. So if your study abroad program started later than a regular spring semester, you wouldn't get your funds until 10 days before the study abroad program. The financial aid will pay the $400 for a third-party provider that CU Denver is charging you, and then you will be dispersed the rest of that funding. Then it is the student's responsibility then to turn around and pay the foreign institution or the third-party provider from those funds.
Thank you. And I have just a couple more questions that we commonly hear in our office. So we do work with a number of students who are work study students, and they have that as part of their financial award. And for those students who may be studying abroad or planning to study abroad, during the normal academic year, like fall or spring, and they are unable to fulfill those work study obligations while they're studying abroad, are there ways for them to qualify for more aid, or would that be more of like a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, because
with your
every
office.
student's going to be different and it's going to
Mhm.
depend. Like work study definitely goes towards the cost of attendance. And what that means is that you can't receive financial aid beyond the cost of your attendance. And all awards go towards that. So work study does go towards that as well. And it could be eating up some loan eligibility a student may be eligible for. And if they cancel that, we qualify for additional loans. Some students may be offered the maximum amount of loans already that they're eligible to receive with or without the work study, and not taking the work study award doesn't necessarily mean they'll receive additional financial aid funds. So it is a case by case basis.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. And one other question, and it's kind of more of a two-part question, that we've been hearing lately, especially related to COVID-19. Like if a student's financial need has increased during the year, because of COVID-19, or they may need more aid than expected to cover expenses that are not part of the program costs, like flights, for example. Now, what can they do in those situations to perhaps request more aid, if circumstances have changed?
Okay, flights are included in a cost of attendance for a study abroad trip. So ideally, if they have enough financial aid, the flights would be covered as well. But again, financial aid may not be enough money to cover everything. Flights, tuition, depends on what the student is individually eligible for. There's no specific funds earmarked for study abroad. As far as COVID, we had the emergency funds from the federal government last year. We have awarded those all out. So far, we haven't heard anything about getting more. But if there is a change in income or financial situation for a student or their family, from when they filled out the FAFSA, because if you fill out the FAFSA, you know that they're asking for tax information from 2 years back. And so perhaps 2 years, your family made more money. And within those 2 years, there was a job layoff or a loss of income, wage, whatever it may be. It doesn't have to be COVID related. If this happens in general, doesn't have to be study abroad related. If this happens, you can do a reconsideration of an income appeal. The forms are on our website. There's a lot of documents you have to submit with it. But if we are approved for it, then we would, for this year, switch your 2019 income that was asked for on the FAFSA to your 2021, your current income. And if you're making less money in the current tax year, then it may lower your EFC and it may qualify you for some additional need-based financial aid. Again, that would be all a case-by-case basis as well.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And then just a final question. If students have more questions, how can they get in touch with your office?
Well, currently the advisor who is specific for financial aid, his name is Mary Morales. But you can email us on our general email box, and you can call us as well. And those will be routed to her. And some of the staff will be able to answer general questions as well. The thing about study abroad is really financially doesn't really work much differently for a study abroad program as it would for a regular semester. And I think that's what everyone needs to keep in mind too. Yes, you might have increased costs, but depending on what you qualify for in financial aid may not mean you get increased funding. And if you do get increased funding, more than likely it will be a loan.
Thank you so much, Jennifer, and thank you for tackling all of these questions that we commonly see. And I wanted to again briefly open the floor back to the audience for any other questions that you may have related to financial aid at this time.
So if you want to apply for financial aid for the summer, it's a different application, or?
No, it would be the same application as the fall and the spring. So if you have a FAFSA on file at 21, 22, and you've been awarded financial aid for fall and spring, then you've done the application for summer too.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Mimi. Any others? Okay, and just checking the chat from John. Does the award come from the 21-22 year, or is it for the 22-23?
It will depend on the term that you're studying abroad. You're studying abroad in. If you're studying abroad in the summer, this summer 22 will be the 21-22 application. Excuse me. If you are, that would be 21-22. That's Maymester 22. If you are thinking about going fall 22, spring 23, summer 23, that would be the 22-23 FAFSA application.
And it looks like John clarified that it would be for a Maymester.
Right, and so that would be the 21-22.
Great, thank you so much. Any other questions from the audience? Jennifer, I just wanted to ask, and Yvonne as well, as our co-panelists, do you have any other any other tips or important thoughts to share with our audience before we move into scholarship resources?
I would just like to say, as if you're on a study abroad trip and your enrollment changes, if you have to drop out of courses, for any reasons, I'm really going to encourage you all to contact the financial aid office and let us know. Not completing courses, dropping courses, starting courses that were not on your contractual agreement could have impacts to your financial aid, meaning that we could decrease it and you owe funds back, which is never fun. So before you do make any schedule changes, or if you have to make a schedule change, I'm going to really recommend you reach out to our office and let us know. And so you can educate yourself on any potential impacts to your financial aid while you're overseas.
I have a couple of tips that I would like to throw out there. If you're using VA education benefits, again, I mentioned this previously, fill out the FAFSA. You don't know if you don't do it, if you're going to be eligible for any funding, and those, that funding could be grants that you don't need to repay. I would also recommend that students apply for scholarships. When you're using, as I mentioned before, the post 9/11 GI Bill, you're going to want to apply for scholarships that are general scholarships, not tuition specific scholarships, in order to be able to get that funding to you rather than that funding discounting what we bill to the VA for tuition and fees. So those two things I think are very important. A lot of our students who are using VA education benefits don't think they'll qualify, or sometimes just don't want to apply for scholarships because they think maybe other people might have more need. Go ahead and do it. Having more money is always better.
Thank you both so much for your wisdom and expertise, helping to guide our students through this process, and for taking the time to answer these very, very commonly asked questions. And I'm sure that we will have lots more questions for you, but we appreciate all the support that you offer. So thank you again. And so to finish the last third of our session today, I wanted to take a few minutes to review some general scholarship tips and resources, and some creative ideas for fundraising. Again, this slide deck will be shared with everyone who registered today, so I will not go into detail about all of the resources listed here, but just wanted to give each of you an idea of what is all out there. So know that, again, that there are lots of scholarship options out there. It can be a bit cumbersome trying to navigate everything that's out there, but we have a few tips here for you. So a few things to know before starting the scholarship application process. Apply early, even if you do not know where you're wanting to study abroad and when. Plan to apply for whatever scholarships you qualify, as soon as you can, because deadlines can be a bit sooner than you anticipate. Next, keep a list or chart of all the scholarships you qualify for, based on country, major, diversity criteria, and other factors, all sorted by deadline. So even if there's scholarships that you're not 100% sure that you'll apply for, you at least have a consolidated list of the ones that are appealing to you. Next, assess the level of competition for the scholarships you're interested in before applying, especially for those high dollar scholarships, like the 10,000, the full ride, type of scholarships. Gilman was one that we were talking about earlier, that is a bit competitive, but in recent years, because of COVID, we've actually seen more applicants for Gilman qualify than normal, just because the applicant pool was a bit smaller. So get a sense for what the competition looks like before applying, because it may be worthwhile to aim for more of those smaller $500, $750 scholarships. Be prepared to tell a compelling story and how you plan to use that experience abroad to help others. So it's not enough just to tell your life story, but how do you plan to build on that experience? What will be your follow-on project once you return? And you use Emily's example, as a great one to follow, knowing that she had a very unique story, but also great ideas for how to help others succeed with similar scholarships in the future. Lastly, search the internet for advice on how to write a strong scholarship essay, but also utilize our writing center as well, especially for those high dollar scholarships where the essay is a make or break factor. So there are 4 broad scholarship categories to consider: merit-based, student-specific, destination-specific, and program or subject-specific scholarships. So merit-based awards tend to be based on a student's academic, artistic, athletic, or other abilities. Sometimes those may also involve your extracurricular activities, what you do outside of class, and your community service history. So know that they may not be exclusively based on your GPA. Student-specific awards, those factors can include gender, race, religion, family characteristics, medical history, the list goes on. Minority scholarships are most common in this category. Destination-specific awards are usually awarded as incentives to study abroad in specific countries. So if you're interested in, say, India or the UK or Japan, there are lots of scholarships out there that may be unique to that specific country. So it may not matter what you're studying, how far you are in college, just the fact that you are interested in that country makes you eligible for that award. Lastly, program or subject-specific awards. Those may be offered by your particular college or school for specific study abroad programs, or there may be some available for certain majors. So several of the scholarships that are offered through CU Denver for study abroad are program specific or subject area specific, or maybe tied to students pursuing a certain minor. So keep in mind that the qualifications for scholarships can vary widely. So definitely pay attention to the fine print as you're looking through those scholarship options. And here's a listing of some scholarship databases that we recommend for you to look into, kind of sorted by study abroad scholarship sites and general scholarship sites. Scholarship Universe, as Jennifer mentioned earlier, is a great resource for CU Denver students in particular. I will add that to the slide deck before we send this out. But the different options listed here, these allow you to search for scholarships by location, by major, sometimes even by time of year, by your degree program. But ultimately, whether you study abroad or not, highly recommend for you to also utilize FAFSA. That is one that tends to be promoted a lot in high school, but it is a great one for students in any year of college, and you're able to create a profile based on your background, your academic history, anything that's really unique about you, and they're able to curate scholarships that match your profile. And so kind of taking that guesswork out of searching through hundreds of scholarships, they're able to pull several options together that fit you specifically. So know that the options on these websites may vary depending on the time of year. So we do encourage you to make it a habit to perhaps check these sites, especially the study abroad ones, maybe on a monthly basis. Because there may be opportunities that are added throughout the year and removed throughout the year. So on this next slide, there's a listing of the various CU Denver study abroad scholarships. I won't go into detail about each of these, but just be aware that your particular college or school may have its own scholarships available. Some may require an application, some are automatically awarded to students pursuing programs for that particular area of study. But to highlight a couple here on the slide, through our office, we do have a new passport scholarship that we have recently launched, where we are supporting students by awarding them funds to apply for a passport if you've never held one before. More information about the scholarship will be posted on our website on the scholarships page. But if you do have any questions about this or want more information on how to apply, feel free to email our office, and you will need to apply by March 1st. We also have our own global education scholarship that's available for students pursuing a global study program. So like a faculty-led program running a Maymester and summer. It's a $500 award that you can apply for right now. And the deadline is March 1st. And the link to go to that application will be included here in the slide deck. Also for business students, there is the Reynolds Global Business Fund. This is an award that is that can be applied for students studying on a program that is offered through the business school, so pursuing business courses abroad. That one does have an earlier deadline than some of the other options listed here. It's coming up in just a few days on February 1st, but we do have the hyperlink to that application in our slide deck as well. I encourage you, if you have some questions about like college or program-specific scholarships, please feel free to be in touch with the academic advisor for your respective college or school to help you understand the qualifications for those scholarships a bit more. I do have some links for various colleges and schools that do have their own applications. But if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to your particular advisor, and they can help coach you through those opportunities. On this slide, we have a number of select national scholarships. This list is not extensive, and most of these are on our website. The Benjamin A. Gilman Scholarship, we talked about that one quite a bit, and it is linked here. But I do want to mention that in addition to our normal Gilman Scholarship for Pell Grant recipients, there is also a Gilman McCain Scholarship that provides awards of up to $5,000 for undergraduate children of active duty service members to study or intern abroad on credit-bearing programs. So that is one that we do promote for military-connected students, again, who are children of active duty service members. Several of these, again, are on our website, and I do encourage you to take a closer look at these. And again, you'll see that the awards can range from a few $1,000s to perhaps up to $20,000. And those tend to be in locations that are less traveled. And next, we have a couple of selected national programs listed here. And I wanted to see, Catherine, if you could perhaps speak to the Rangel Fellowship and the Pickering Fellowship Program a little bit.
I sure can. So these are two State Department programs which are designed to allow students who may not normally make it through the foreign service application process and who have a minority status to apply for a 2-year scholarship. And that would mean they would be put into a master's program and they would do some internship works with the Department of State. And if they succeed through the 2 years, they have automatic entry into the Foreign Service. So they select a couple dozen people every year. And you don't necessarily have to be a minority, but I know that that's how the program's designed. We actually had a student here at the university who was actually we had 2 students at the university who were alternate candidates, and they weren't selected ultimately for the program, but they were alternates so that if somebody had dropped out, they would have been pulled in. 2 gals from the university that are both seniors. So there's definitely interest in our campus. I am helping to promote it. I am writing letters of recommendations for the students who apply, and it's a phenomenal opportunity. The students that come into the program are incredibly impressive. I've worked with them for 30 years in my career, and they're highly successful foreign service officers, often moving up to the highest ranks of diplomacy. So it's definitely worth a close look. It's valued at over $30,000 because it includes a whole master's program. And it's a wonderful way to enter the Foreign Service. So if anyone's particularly interested in talking more about this, just get in touch with me and let's sit down and have a conversation.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Catherine. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And I hope that these examples illustrate for students that there are scholarships, not just for study abroad, but for opportunities after graduation. If you want to continue being involved in international affairs or international research or further studies somehow. And the Fulbright program, which is also listed on the slide, is another great example. It is a prestigious program for US students where you can receive comprehensive funding for conducting research abroad, teaching abroad, or any other professional studies abroad. And there are several different kinds of awards available, not just for students, but also for professional staff. So I highly, highly recommend for you to take a look at this option as a great one following graduation. This is also a, yes, there's a question in the chat, Catherine. Sylvia is asking if you can't share your contact information.
Oh, sure, I'll put it in the chat now, but you can always look up my last name.
Excellent, thank you, thank you. So on this slide, there are a few location-specific scholarships listed. These are some of the popular ones that we see in our office. We do have more listed on our scholarships page, but as I said earlier, know that there are scholarships that are destination-specific. These are some of the bigger ones that are available. Some are available for short-term study, and others are available for studies lasting for a semester up to a full year. So I do encourage you to take a look at our scholarships page, which is hyperlinked here for more location-specific options. And last but not least, we have a number of scholarships available through our third-party providers. So again, third-party providers are study abroad companies that will offer options to study and intern abroad. And many of them have their own incentives available to help students successfully participate in programs that they offer. And they have a wide range of options available. And for the sake of space, I just included the links to each provider that we work with, scholarships and grants page, where you can see everything that's available. These are quite wide ranging. Some of them include a Gilman match, where if you receive a Gilman scholarship, that third-party provider will match those funds, so essentially doubling that reward for you. Some offer scholarships that are related to our institution status as a Hispanic serving institution. Lots of merit-based and diversity scholarships that are available. And if you have a sibling that studied abroad through that third-party provider, you can receive a scholarship, just by having a sibling, having gone through that organization in the past. So lots of unique opportunities, and those can range from a few $100s to a full ride, having that program entirely paid for. Some providers offer CU Denver students an automatic discount. So you can take a look at those providers on our website as well. Those affiliate providers will offer unique opportunities specifically for CU Denver students. But again, feel free to explore these as you navigate your program options. And finally, I'm not going to spend much time on these last couple of slides, but we would like to end the session by sharing some fundraising ideas. And I encourage you to review these slides on your own time. We have 2 slides here with ideas from our study abroad partner, AIFS, with lots of great creative ideas on how to use your networks, both in person and your social networks, to crowdfund for studying abroad. Just some successful ideas, what works, what doesn't. And there are more examples available on the AIFS website. You'll also see on the next slide that we have some examples, again, from AIFS for virtual fundraisers and in-person fundraisers, particularly once life goes back to normal a bit more, where you can do some creative fundraising to help support your study abroad experience. So thinking outside the box a bit, especially trying to gain money off of activities that are related to your destination or to what you're planning on studying abroad. And lastly, the ideas that we have from our office include using Milo's Crowd, which is CU Denver's own crowdfunding platform. I have Jennifer Daly's email address hyperlinked here, so you can contact her directly to gain access to that site and help with making a post. Lastly, writing letters for potential donors, like others who may be interested in supporting your study abroad experience. Questions to consider as you make a personalized appeal to them. And never forget to send thank yous to each of those people that you're reaching out to. But again, to share your story. Be prepared to tell your story before you go abroad and once you return from that program. So I know the last bit was a bit rushed, but hopefully this session has been very helpful to all of you, both those of you who are present here today and are watching this recording. Again, the overall tips that we have are to start early, be prepared to tell your story, utilize your resources, both on-campus resources, online resources, and you'll consult with other students who've been through this experience before. But we are here to help however we can. So I did just want to open the floor one last time for any final questions from the audience. Well, if any other questions do arise, we do have our email address listed here on the final slide. I do just want to give a quick thank you again, not only to all of you for being here today and for watching this recording, but thank you to Yvonne and Jennifer for all of your fantastic expertise and your time, not only today, but in helping students navigate these processes, for study abroad and using financial and federal aid here at CU Denver in general. And again, another huge thank you to the Office of Global Education team for all of your support. You're helping to navigate students through this process, and we again remain resources here for all of you. And so, any other final thoughts? Thank you all again. Have a wonderful day, and we will have this slide deck and recording posted for you all shortly. So thank you.
Crystal, this was so great.